They say size doesn't matter, but when China builds a bridge, it seems they want to reach the moon before NASA. Currently, the Asian giant is redrawing the global map with projects that challenge the economics and sanity of world leaders. Today, we'll analyze 8 megaprojects that are shifting the axis of power eastward. Don't miss the final one because it's the construction that left Trump speechless. Let's begin. Daxing Airport, the starfish that welcomes the world. In southern Beijing, where until recently there were farmlands and small rural villages, now stands one of the most impressive structures ever conceived by humankind. Daxing International Airport is not your average airport. It's a city dedicated to transportation, a gateway to China that greets visitors with an image they will never forget. Its design, the work of the late architect Zaha Hadid, resembles a 5-pointed starfish lying on the land. This shape is neither accidental nor merely aesthetic, but rather the result of an obsessive logic of efficiency that permeates the entire project. With an area of 700,000 square meters, Daxing is the largest single-site airport terminal in the world. To give you an idea of its scale, suffice it to say that 98 regulation-sized soccer fields could fit under its roof with room to spare. And yet, despite its colossal size, passengers don't wander aimlessly through endless connecting corridors. Each of the 5 arms of the star-shaped terminal is designed with a clear purpose: to minimize travel time. As a result, no passenger needs to walk more than 8 minutes from the center of the terminal to the most remote gate. 8 minutes to traverse an airport that could house an entire city. That's the Chinese obsession with efficiency taken to its extreme. The airport was conceived from the ground up to handle a future demand of up to 100 million passengers annually. To put this figure into perspective, the world's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, currently handles just over 100 million passengers. Daxing aims to match that figure from the outset, starting virtually from scratch. It has 4 operational runways with space reserved for a 5th when demand requires it, and is directly connected to the country's high-speed rail network. A passenger can disembark from an international flight and take a train to another Chinese city in a matter of minutes, without even leaving the building. The construction of this megastructure was completed in just 5 years, a record time for a project of this magnitude anywhere in the world. The total investment reached 15.8 billion euros, a figure that alone would be enough to finance the annual budget of entire countries. But Daxing is not just concrete and steel. It incorporates the most advanced energy efficiency systems with natural ventilation that reduces the need for artificial climate control and maximum use of sunlight thanks to its glass roof. It is an airport designed for the future, but built in the present without waiting for technology to mature or costs to decrease. And beyond its figures and records, Daxing has a profound geopolitical significance. It is the first impression that millions of visitors will have of China, the threshold they will cross to enter the Asian giant. And that first impression is of a country that doesn't think small, that doesn't skimp on ambition, that builds for the future as if the present were already behind it. Beijing Starfish is not just an airport, it's a declaration of intent. The Three Gorges Dam, the Yangtze monster. If Daxing is the gateway to China, the Three Gorges Dam is, without a doubt, the country's industrial and energy heart. Located on the Yangtze River, the longest in China and the 3rd longest in the world, this structure is, quite simply, the largest hydroelectric power plant ever built by humankind. There is nothing comparable anywhere else on the planet, neither in scale, nor in power, nor in the impact it has had on the lives of millions of people. The dam's dimensions are so colossal that they are difficult for the human mind to grasp. 2 kilometers and 300 meters in total length, equivalent to more than 20 city blocks lined up end to end, 185 meters high, enough to cover a building of more than 50 stories. An installed electricity generating capacity exceeding 22,000 megawatts, a figure so abstract it needs to be put into context. That energy could supply entire countries the size of Chile or Switzerland. The dam generates as much electricity as 15 large nuclear power plants combined. The construction of this concrete behemoth required 17 years of uninterrupted work, from 1994 to 2011. The total investment reached 27.6 billion euros, an astronomical figure that pales in comparison to the benefits it has brought to the country. More than 40,000 workers participated in the construction at its peak, and 27 million cubic meters of concrete were used. To give you an idea of what this means, that amount of concrete could be used to build 63 buildings identical to the Empire State Building in New York, one of the most famous skyscrapers in the world. But the Three Gorges Dam is not just a source of energy, however impressive its generating capacity may be. It fulfills at least 3 other vital functions for China, and that's what truly makes it a strategic project of the highest order. The first is flood control. The Yangtze has historically been a treacherous river, whose floods have caused millions of deaths over the centuries. The plains of its middle and lower reaches are some of the most densely populated regions on the planet, and any flooding immediately becomes a humanitarian catastrophe. The dam regulates the river's flow, storing water during rainy seasons and releasing it in a controlled manner, drastically reducing the risk of catastrophic flooding. The second function is navigation. The reservoir created by the dam has transformed the upper reaches of the Yangtze into a high-capacity waterway, allowing ships of up to 10,000 tons to travel hundreds of kilometers inland to cities like Chongqing. This has revolutionized the transport of goods in one of the country's most dynamic regions, lowering costs and opening up new commercial opportunities. The third function is irrigation and water supply for the surrounding regions, enabling more productive agriculture and a more reliable supply for cities. However, it would be unfair to present the dam solely as a resounding success because it also has its dark side. Its construction forced the displacement of more than 1 million people, who had to abandon their homes, their lands, and their communities forever. Entire villages were submerged beneath the reservoir's waters, and with them, centuries of history and tradition. The environmental impacts have been considerable. Alterations to the river ecosystem, changes in sediment transport affecting the entire lower course of the river, risks of landslides on the reservoir's banks, and a long list of other problems that engineers are still trying to mitigate decades later. But from a purely technical point of view, the dam is an unprecedented feat of engineering. The complexity of its gates capable of regulating the flow of an entire river, the size of its turbines, the largest ever built, the logistics required to divert the course of the Yangtze River during construction. All of this makes the Three Gorges a landmark of global engineering, a concrete behemoth that dominates nature and puts it at the service of a nation, a symbol of Chinese power for better and for worse. The Southern Xinjiang Railway, crossing climate hell. Not all Chinese megaprojects are as well known as the Three Gorges Dam or Daxing Airport. Some operate in the shadows far from the media spotlight in remote and difficult to access regions. But their strategic importance to the country is, if possible, even greater. This is the case of the Southern Xinjiang Railway, a 1,000-kilometer-long line that crosses the Uyghur Autonomous Region in the far northwest of China from east to west. To understand the magnitude of this project, one must first understand its location. Xinjiang is a land of extreme contrasts, one of the most inhospitable regions on the planet. In winter, temperatures plummet to 40 degrees below zero with icy winds sweeping across the steppe, making any exposure to the outdoors potentially deadly. In summer, the thermometer easily climbs above 40 degrees Celsius, and the scorching sun makes the ground almost impossible to walk on. The terrain is unstable, shaken by frequent earthquakes that force a rethink of any structure. And in vast areas, there is nothing but desert and mountains, kilometers and kilometers of nothingness, without roads, without towns, without anything that could provide logistical support. Building a railway here is not just a technical challenge. It is a hand-to-hand battle against nature in its most hostile state. Chinese engineers took 7 years to complete the line, from 2010 to 2017, with a total investment of 2.6 billion euros. During that time, they had to develop specific solutions for each of the problems posed by the terrain and the climate. For the brutal temperature variations, which caused the rails to expand in summer and contract in winter, they designed special fastening systems that allow movement without compromising the track's geometry. For seismic zones, they developed flexible structures capable of absorbing tremors without breaking. For desert sections, where sand threatens to bury the tracks, they planted vegetation barriers and built lateral protections. And for continuous monitoring of the entire line, they installed sensors along its 1,000 kilometers that provide real-time alerts of any deformation or anomaly. The result of all this effort is a dual-use railway line, carrying both freight trains and high-speed passenger trains. The former transport goods from the production centers of Western China to markets in the east and along export routes. The latter allow the inhabitants of this remote region to travel at speeds of up to 250 kilometers per hour, bridging distances that previously seemed insurmountable. But the strategic function of this railway goes far beyond transportation. It fulfills at least three key geopolitical objectives. The first is the integration of Xinjiang with the rest of China. This region, inhabited mainly by the Muslim Uyghur minority, has historically been a conflict zone with separatist tendencies and a culture very different from that of mainland China. The railway connects it physically and economically to the heart of the country, creating ties of dependency and facilitating government control. The second objective is to strengthen China's presence in a geopolitically sensitive area. Xinjiang borders 8 different countries, including Russia, India, Pakistan, and several Central Asian republics. Having a modern railway line crossing the region allows China to project its influence over all these nations, facilitating trade and creating strategic alliances. The third objective, perhaps the most important in the long term, is the connection to the roots of the Belt and Road Initiative. Railways that cross Central Asia and reach the Middle East and Europe originate in Xinjiang. This southern railway is the first link in a chain that ends in the most dynamic markets on the planet. 1,000 kilometers of rail through a climate hell, yes, but also 1,000 kilometers of influence, of power, of control over the routes of the future. It's not a project that appears on tourist postcards, but it's one that is truly changing the global balance. The Bayanguang Bridge, aerospace precision on asphalt. In one of China's most densely populated regions, where population pressure makes every square meter invaluable, stands a bridge that resembles a giant construction set. The Bayanguang Bridge isn't the longest in the country, nor the tallest, nor the one that required the most investment. But in terms of technical precision, it rivals satellites orbiting Earth and the most delicate components of the aerospace industry. The structure is composed of 4,450 prefabricated modular panels, each weighing approximately 445 kilograms. These panels alone, without considering pillars, foundations, or support systems, add up to a weight of over 1,980 tons. It's as if nearly 2,000 family cars were stacked on top of each other, but spread out over several kilometers. What's truly impressive, however, isn't the total weight of the structure, but the precision with which each of those panels was placed. The Chinese engineers established a maximum margin of error of 0.01 millimeters in the fit of each piece. To give you an idea of what this means, the thickness of a human hair ranges from 0.02 to 0.07 millimeters. The tolerance allowed on this bridge is less than the thickness of a hair. It's a level of precision that rivals that used in the aerospace industry to manufacture components for satellites, rockets, or space telescopes. Why this obsession with millimeter precision in a structure seemingly as simple as a road bridge? The answer lies in the physics of large-scale construction. When you have thousands of pieces fitted together, any error, however small, is amplified throughout the structure. A misalignment of a few tenths of a millimeter in one panel can become a misalignment of several centimeters by the end of the bridge. And those few centimeters of difference compromise the stability, safety, and durability of the entire structure. The Chinese engineers, aware of this risk, were unwilling to allow even the slightest error. The effort was worthwhile. The Bayanguang Bridge has completely transformed mobility in one of China's most congested regions. Before its construction, traveling between two neighboring provinces separated by a minor geographical feature took around 5 hours on narrow, winding secondary roads. Today, that same journey is covered in just an hour and a half on a modern, safe highway. The reduction in travel time exceeds 70%, which in economic terms translates into millions of hours saved each year. But the benefits of the bridge go far beyond mobility. By shortening distances, it has boosted regional trade like never before. Products that previously could not be transported due to their perishability or low profit margins now find markets in neighboring provinces. It has fostered tourism, connecting areas of scenic interest that were previously isolated due to a lack of adequate access. It has increased property values throughout the surrounding area, creating wealth and opportunities for thousands of families. And it has demonstrated, once again, that precision engineering applied on a large scale can transform entire regions. The lesson that engineers worldwide should learn from Bayanguang is clear. Precision is not a luxury reserved for high-tech projects, but an investment that multiplies the return on any type of construction. A well-built bridge with minimal tolerances will last longer, require less maintenance, and generate more profits throughout its lifespan. And in a country like China, where construction takes place on a scale the rest of the world can scarcely imagine, that lesson is applied millions of times, every day, on every project. The Taishan Nuclear Power Plant, the reactor that defies risk. In Guangdong Province in southern China, where the verdant rice paddies meet the vastness of the South China Sea, stands one of the most complex and technologically advanced structures ever built by humankind. The Taishan Nuclear Power Plant is not just another facility in China's energy mix. It is the largest single-capacity operating nuclear power plant on the planet, an engineering colossus that challenges the limits of what we thought possible in the realm of atomic energy. The story of Taishan begins in 2009, when the first excavators started to move earth at a site carefully selected for its geological stability and its proximity to the sea, necessary for the cooling systems. For 10 years until 2018, more than 30,000 engineers and workers took turns in endless shifts to build what would become a symbol of Chinese technological prowess. The total investment reached 18.4 billion euros, a figure that alone would be enough to completely transform the economies of entire countries. But what truly distinguishes Taishan from other nuclear power plants is not its size or cost, but the technology it houses. The plant is equipped with two EPR reactors, whose acronym stands for European Pressurized Reactor, one of the most modern and safest designs ever developed. Each of these reactors has a generating capacity of 1,750 megawatts, totaling 3,500 megawatts for the entire facility. To put this figure into perspective, it suffices to say that this amount of electricity could supply 26 million Chinese homes, a population equivalent to that of entire countries like Australia or North Korea. The choice of EPR technology was not accidental. These reactors were designed in Europe with an almost obsessive focus on safety, learning from the mistakes and tragedies of the past. Chernobyl, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island. Each nuclear accident has provided a lesson that engineers have incorporated into the design of the EPR reactors. The result is a reactor capable of withstanding events that would cause any other facility to collapse. The safety measures at Taishan are so comprehensive that they are difficult to describe without exaggeration. The building that houses each reactor is constructed of extremely high-density concrete, with walls over 2 meters thick in some areas. This concrete is designed to withstand not only radiation, but also extremely violent external impacts. A commercial airliner crashing at full speed into the structure would not penetrate it. A massive external explosion would be absorbed by the concrete shielding without damaging the reactor core. The Danyang-Kunshan Bridge, the longest in the world. If there's one structure that embodies China's obsession with breaking records better than any other, it's undoubtedly the Danyang-Kunshan Bridge. It's not the tallest bridge, nor the most technically complex, nor the one that required the greatest investment per kilometer. But in one simple and straightforward category, length, it has no rival on the entire planet. It's the longest bridge ever built by humankind. Its figures are so overwhelming that they're difficult to grasp. 164 kilometers and 800 meters in total length. To give you an idea of what this means, imagine getting into a car and starting to travel it at a constant speed. It would take you almost 2 hours to reach the other end without leaving the bridge for a single second. 2 hours on an elevated structure, crossing rivers, lakes, marshy terrain, and densely populated urban areas. It's such a surreal distance that it's hard to believe it's real. The bridge is part of the high-speed rail line connecting Beijing and Shanghai, two of China's most important cities and two of the world's most dynamic economic hubs. Its purpose is to overcome the geographical obstacles along the route, allowing trains to travel at over 300 kilometers per hour without needing to slow down at any point. What used to be a journey of more than 10 hours by conventional train is now covered in just over 4 thanks to infrastructure like this. Construction of the bridge began in 2006 and was completed in just 4 years, a record time for a project of this scale. The total investment reached 7.8 billion euros, an astronomical figure, but one that pales in comparison to the economic benefits it has generated. More than 10,000 workers participated in the construction at its peak, working in shifts day and night to meet deadlines. The geographical challenges they faced were enormous. The bridge's route crosses marshy terrain where the ground is so unstable that any conventional structure would sink. To overcome this challenge, engineers had to drive piles up to 100 meters deep, searching for layers of solid rock capable of supporting the weight. It also spans dozens of rivers and streams, for which special spans had to be designed with sufficient clearances to avoid obstructing the flow of water. And it crosses the vast Yancheng Lake, one of the largest in the region, which demanded innovative engineering solutions to maintain the structure's stability on the water. The quantities of materials used are equally colossal. More than 450,000 tons of steel, enough to build 50 Eiffel Towers. 2 million cubic meters of concrete, enough to fill almost 1,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Each of these figures is a triumph over logic, a demonstration that when China decides to build something, it spares no expense. But the bridge not only had to face geographical challenges during its construction, it is also designed to withstand the most extreme conditions throughout its lifespan. Earthquakes of magnitude 8 on the Richter scale shouldn't cause it to collapse. Typhoons with winds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour wouldn't bring it down. Even the impact of a large vessel against one of its pillars is accounted for within safety margins. To ensure that all this effort is not in vain, the bridge has automated maintenance systems distributed along its entire length. Sensors constantly monitor structural integrity, detecting any abnormal vibrations, any displacement, any sign of material fatigue. When something requires attention, the system knows before anyone can notice it with the naked eye. The Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, the Great Wall over the sea. If the Danyang-Kunshan Bridge is the longest bridge in the world over land, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is, without question, the most ambitious ever built over the sea. It is not a simple structure but a complex system that combines elevated viaducts, submerged tunnels, and artificial islands to achieve what seemed impossible, uniting 3 of China's most dynamic and strategic regions across the waters of the Pearl River estuary. The total length of the system is 55 kilometers, of which approximately 29 correspond to the main bridge and the rest to access roads and connections. But what truly distinguishes this project is not its length, but the technical solution its engineers had to devise to solve a seemingly insurmountable problem. The Pearl River estuary is one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, with thousands of vessels of all sizes passing through daily, from small fishing boats to enormous container ships. A conventional bridge, however high, would have blocked the passage of the largest ships, strangling the region's trade. The solution was as bold as it was effective. Instead of building a continuous bridge, engineers designed a hybrid system combining elevated spans with a submerged tunnel 6 kilometers and 700 meters long. This tunnel, constructed from 33 enormous prefabricated concrete modules, each 180 meters long and 38 meters wide, rests on the seabed at a depth of up to 40 meters. Above it, the estuary's waters continue to flow freely, and ships can pass without obstruction. To connect the tunnel to the elevated bridges at either end, 2 artificial islands of approximately 100,000 square meters each were built, creating a smooth transition between the open air and the seabed. Construction of this colossus began in 2009 and lasted 9 years, until 2018. The total investment reached 18.4 billion euros, a figure that places it among the most expensive infrastructure projects in history. During that time, workers had to drive piles tens of meters deep into the seabed in wind and wave conditions that would have paralyzed any other construction project. The hundreds of tons of blocks that form the bridge and tunnel were positioned with millimeter precision, guided by satellite positioning systems and controlled by computers that adjusted every movement in real time. The bridge's structural strength is another of its key features. It was designed to withstand earthquakes of magnitude 8, something infrequent but possible in this seismic region. It can also withstand winds of up to 340 kilometers per hour, equivalent to those of a Category 5 typhoon, the highest on the scale, and to absorb the impact of a large cargo ship that might lose control and crash into its pillars, a scenario that engineers considered improbable but not impossible. The logistical impact of this project has been nothing short of transformative. Before its construction, traveling by road between Hong Kong and Zhuhai required a detour of more than 4 hours skirting the entire estuary. The ferry journey was faster but dependent on weather conditions and had limited capacity. Today, the same trip can be made in about 40 minutes with the comfort and reliability of a modern highway. What was once a dividing line is now a link that unites. The new $1 trillion megaproject, the project that drove Trump crazy. We finally arrive at the project that gives this video its title, the one that has put the White House on alert and provoked angry reactions from Washington. A mega project valued at 1 trillion euros, a figure so astronomical that it's difficult even to pronounce, so colossal that it defies any attempt at comparison. But what exactly is it? A bridge? A railway? An entire city? The answer is more complex and, at the same time, simpler than it seems. It's not a single project, but a global strategy. The New Silk Road, also officially known as the Belt and Road Initiative. A master plan of infrastructure spanning dozens of countries, thousands of kilometers of roads, railways, ports, oil pipelines, and gas pipelines, and which aims to completely reconfigure world trade around China. The figure of 1 trillion euros is the most conservative estimate of what China has already invested or committed to in this global network. And what is most impressive is that this is not free money, but strategic investments that will generate returns for decades. Ports in Pakistan and Sri Lanka that provide access to the Indian Ocean and control vital shipping lanes. Railways in Laos and Kenya that open entire regions to trade and development. Roads in the Balkans that bring Chinese products closer to European markets. Oil and gas pipelines in Central Asia that ensure energy supplies without depending on vulnerable shipping routes. Each of these projects on its own would be newsworthy. Together, they form a network of influence that will tie the economies of dozens of countries to the Chinese sphere of influence, creating dependencies and alliances that will last for decades. The countries participating in the initiative obtain infrastructure they otherwise could not afford, but in return, they are integrated into a system designed and controlled from Beijing. Their ports will be operated by Chinese companies. Its railways will transport goods destined for China. Its rules and standards will gradually align with those of the Asian giant. What drives Trump, and the American political class in general, crazy is not a particular bridge or dam, however impressive they may be. It's the overall vision. While the United States becomes entangled in internal disputes, trade wars that alienate its allies, and sterile debates about climate change or healthcare reform, China is weaving a web of global influence that no missile, no sanctions, no grand pronouncements can unravel. Because when trains run and ships dock in ports built by China, when countries depend on Chinese routes for their foreign trade, when economies are intertwined with that of the Asian giant in ways that cannot be undone overnight, the world's center of gravity will have definitively shifted eastward, and that, for any American president, is a strategic nightmare. The New Silk Road is not just a collection of infrastructure projects. This is the physical manifestation of a new geopolitical reality. It is China telling the world, the future starts here. And while the West looks on with concern, China forges ahead kilometer by kilometer, port by port, alliance by alliance. What you have seen so far is not a plan or a promise. These are real projects already completed or fully operational that demonstrate the magnitude of the leap China is taking ahead of the rest of the world. While other countries remain stuck on paper, debating budgets, delaying decisions, paralyzed by fear of risk or a lack of consensus, China builds. It erects the longest bridge on the planet, the largest hydroelectric power plant in history, the most efficient airport, the most extensive railway network, the safest nuclear power plants. And as it does so, it weaves a web of influence that spans entire continents.